So, what is your why? Now, I've talked about the why thing before, and I'm not really a fan of the why thing because of for obvious reasons. You've looked at sort of self improvement and all that sort of stuff. The why thing was a real, I don't know, it was a trendy thing at one moment. What's your why and all that? And I just, it's just for me. It was just a little bit like all the self improvement stuff. It's for me. It doesn't sit well. And it's a bit like, hopelessness or desperation or what, I don't know. But anyway, as I said, the why thing was something I kept away from. Anyway, this morning, and I spoke about it before, about my reason for doing this, which is I prefer the reason to why. My reason for doing it is much more important than why I do it. I'll explain in a minute. I suppose that's a little bit contradictory, but so this morning I'm going to draw this guy, by the way, and I'll talk about why and that I've chosen that as well. So this morning this thing pops up about if you want to learn to paint portraits, you should ask how. Shouldn't ask how, you should ask why. But the why was a how, if that makes sense, because the questions were, why do the colours react with each other when they do? Why does the light create these shadows? Why, is the fabric represented in this way? They were all kind of leading to the how. Whereas I'm thinking in terms of the motives. In my reason is for me. I mean, I'm very sort of basic, and deliberately basic in the terms of my reasoning, and I just enjoy doing it. I actually like doing it, and that's good. I think the thing about creativity and your reaction to creative things must be undefinable. I don't think it needs to be, why do you like that? Well, I like it because it's this, and I like it because it's that, and I like it because all those sort of things, they override your emotional response because you're trying to rationalize it, you're trying to analyze it. Not something you should do when it comes to creativity. Creativity or art in general needs to move you, and without question, without analysis. And if there is analysis involved in it, then you've got to question why you do what you do, because if you analyse it and it's because of I like the lines, I like the way you handle the colour, I like the way you handle the texture and all the rest of it, that means you're going to be a certain kind of artist because you're influenced by those things. So for me, emotional elements to the motivation of what we do are far more important, because without that, and I'm going to talk about the image, without the emotional response thing, we are not capturing anything other than what we see. And art captures, let's say it captures more than just what you can see. That's the whole point of art. It is to illuminate the beauty within the everyday, and within reality, as they say. And that's the thing. So it's more than just what you can see. And I've said this before about portraits. Why people want to just show people's faces and make replicas of faces, I've no idea. Because it's probably in its basic definition is what portraits do. They just make a copy of a face. And in the grand tradition, the kings and the queens thing, it was just simply to inform people what their king and queen and whatever else bishop looked like. It wasn't any more complicated than that, but it doesn't mean that we have to keep doing that, and make them look-alike replicas just so that people can recognize. Oh, I can recognize. You see these people that put photograph at the side of their drawing and say, "How did I do?" What on earth? I mean, that's like just. I don't want to be around that kind of thing, and I try not to be in groups that are like that. Because there's more to it than that. There's just more to it than how well you can copy. This is back to the why thing and the how thing. And I think that's probably, and I I came across this morning, and as I said, I've talked about why before, but I'd not really got down to the nitty gritty of this argument of motivation and emotional connection and all those sort of things, which are the part of the why. I mean, my why is simply that I enjoy doing it. That's my motives. It's the connection, emotional connection thing that I enjoy, and it's the emotional connection thing that I try to capture, because I think that that's probably number one on in portraiture. You have to make an emotional connection. You have to capture that emotion. It's the person, how the person makes people feel, and how they feel about them. That's the important factor in making portraits. And subsequently, it kind of overrides all the practical stuff. It doesn't matter how practical, how well you can master the medium. Whatever. A friend of mine just got a handbook on oil painting, and I don't really care for stuff like that. You don't, if you need a handbook to make art, then you don't get what this is about. You know what I mean? It really is not. It's not. You don't need a handbook. You might need a handbook to replace the gearbox on your Austin 7, but I don't think you need a handbook to actually be creative. A creative handbook. There you go. I'll tell you how to be creative. What a terrible thing. Anyway, but as I said, I'm not really, and I don't want to really bottom this idea. I just think that if I said this morning about geometry and the measurement in geometry won't make a difference to your ability to paint or draw or respond, but as soon as you realise that, it will. Knowing that it won't make a difference makes the difference. But that's kind of the situation with the why thing. The understanding that your peculiar desire, your peculiar being a specific individual and so on and so forth, because it's peculiar to you, is all really it takes. It doesn't take anything more than that. I need to be able to copy the face within an inch of its life and it'll look exactly the same as a photograph, kind of thing. And where does that come from? That comes from all kinds of things. I mean, mostly with the ones that really do it well. There's a lot of ego involved in that, but there are also, and they then drive others to think that that's the route that they should take. But not having a outcome in mind, not having a specific expectation, that's a difficult thing for people to understand. This is, what is it we're doing? What is it? Oh, I need to know what I'm doing. It's the same as the Nicoladus thing, the Nicoladus or whatever his name is. Of you need to be able to touch it in order to be able to paint it. That kind of thing. It's a very ordinary world kind of thinking. And the problem is with being creative or creativity full stop is that it's not from the real world. It's something that is I've said before, it's like a magical force. It's one of those things that that shouldn't be explained. Well, I said, but it's not explained. It prevails, but as soon as it's explained, it no longer exists. It's like photons, It's only when you look at them that they exist. When you're looking at them, they don't exist. And that's like that. Isn't that weird that that's something that's subatomic level is similar to in its behaviour to creativity? It's like fantastical force. That's the thing. It's that. But this production mentality, just all it means is that people can do it. You know, you can be replicated, it can be taught, it can be measured. You know, that's what it means. But what if it shouldn't be replicated or measured or taught? Well, if it's just a case of it has to be, you know. And I think that is probably the most difficult thing that people can't come to terms with, or try to come to terms with, is this thing of it's indefinable. You know, it's like, and everybody tries, everybody tries to define creativity, and what's my creativity compared to your creativity and all that. Everybody tries to do that, but the more you try, the less you understand. You know, it's that famous old saying. You know, the more you see, the less you understand. It's kind of like that, and to mix up the why approach with nothing more than a route to a how. You know, it's I'll confuse it with how as well. I think that's wrong. I think the simpler your motives are. I mean, I think that you should just do it. I mean, I know it's a cliche that to say, "Oh, just do it," but I think that's what you should do. If you have a desire to create, then it's pretty much nailed on that you're going to create something. It may not be what other people expect of creativity, or it may not be what you expect of creativity if you've got an expectation. But the just doing thing results in the unexpected, and I would think that's probably one of the most important things about creativity, that it should be unpredictable. It should be unexpected. As soon as it becomes unexpected, it becomes normalised. And so once it's normalised, it's no longer that special. It's just that, you know, it's become accepted. This is the thing about, you know, exhibitions and galleries and competitions and everything. There is a level of expectation, a level of normality, a level of predictability about it all. Even down to when you see the winners of the shows and all that, it's predictable that they would win. So anything that's going to undermine the creativity, or creativity full stop, it's going to be the enemy of creativity. Let me just swap this over. So that's it. I think the why thing was that was the main thing. I'm probably going to think this through a lot. I tend to work these things out on these videos, but I think I'm probably going to work this a little more and think it through better. But it's definitely, because the problem is, and it's like all the things I talk about, they're too simple, and people like complication. You know, they're getting things in the right place thing. I mean, I simplified it by turning it into 3 simple measurements, but it's too simple for people. They want it more complicated than that, which is why I was talking about geometry and measurement this morning. And this why thing is the same thing. It's like, it's not enough just to say just do it. It has to be because. And I think the why thing for me, because my why is, as I said, because I enjoy doing it, but it also leads on to why I enjoy doing it. I enjoy doing it because I enjoy connecting with the other humans and so on and so forth, and really relating to other humans and using the skills that I've got and you've got and everybody else has got, which is the human interaction stuff, just using those to drive the way I respond to what I see. Not at any point am I considering why the light hits this, why that shadow's there, or why, and so on and so forth. Because as soon as you do that, why is that eye that shape? Well, you're going to have to find the answer to that, aren't you? And as soon as you start trying to find answers to things like that, then it becomes a different thing. It becomes a completely different thing. And, you know, and it doesn't stop with that. It can also become, you know, why why does the paint not flow in the way it should flow, and so on and so forth, and that, back to the handbook thing. But as I said, the for me, as in the, you know, with the geometry and then with the pencil remarks this morning, easy and hard thing, I think that once you start asking the right questions, everything becomes clearer. But it's not asking; it's asking the right questions. You can't ask the questions based on what you already know. So you already know that it's going to end up. So how do I make a drawing that looks like that? Or how do I paint that like so and so? All those sort of questions. You can't ask those questions, because that's not going to do you any favours. Unless you want to paint like somebody else, or unless you want to capture, you know, reality without make it completely a complete copy of it. Then obviously, how do I do that is exactly what you need to be asking. But the you know, the transformation of your creativity, or the realization of creativity, has more to do with why you do it than it does to be how you do it. So it's a different thing. So why things do what they do is one question, and that's kind of what the guy was talking about this morning. But why you do what you do is a completely different question. And I think that once you've answered that question, everything changes. You know, I mean, you think about it. If your why is so that I can get into an exhibition, or to sell, or if that's your why, then you're going to paint a certain way, aren't you? You're going to ask the certain questions. What do I paint that will sell? You know, all that kind of stuff. So, like I say, I'm struggling to make it any more complicated, I suppose, than it is, because it's not. It's really simple, this stuff. And I've said this before, you know, none of us are going to be remembered in 100 years' time. So we might as well just connect with our own why, connect with your own reason to do this. I'm still a bit reticent to use the word why, because of the lifestyle connotation thing. But it is that, in a way. It is that. I mean, I can't really deny that knowing your why, regardless of what it is you're doing, is probably the it's probably a good thing. So, I say, but it's just that I didn't like the self-empowerment stuff. Anyway, that said, as I said, it is about your motives. It is about your reasoning, your reason for doing it. It is about those things. So you can't, you know, it's not something that can be just ignored. I think that's probably one of the things that I find with people that focus on production, is that their motives are warped by the production techniques, but how-tos. You know, they're warped by that. Not just the work that they do or the things that they paint, but their measurement of themselves. See, that's another thing that is affected by your why or your reasoning. If it is misdirected, if it is about doing it as good as so and so, or in the same way that so and so does it, then your outcome, your success, if you want to use that word, because you can never fail if you've got the right attitude. But if you want to talk about success, you could simply in the sense of as I say, trying to do it like somebody else, you can sink into a rabbit hole really of execution and process, you know, and that can, for a lot of people, can be a detrimental thing. Well, I think, if truth be told, I think all people would suffer from that, but majority of people think that they achieve a certain level of production, and that's success. That's how they define success. And that's without, like I say, because with the why's not being properly thought out. The other thing about not thinking about your why properly, your reason properly, is that one day you wake up and think, why am I doing this? You know, and it's just like anything else. I mean, we're now at a time when AI is so prevalent, and now it's being used to dismantle what little respect artists had by simply replicating artist styles. And the question, you're going to ask the question, you know, if AI can do it, a piece of software can do this just like I can do it, only better and quicker, why am I doing it? And the problem is that a lot of people don't have the reason properly established. They spent their lives learning the skills, which the computer can now do in seconds. And you can kick and scream all you like, but that's the truth of it. It's going to happen, and it's your own fault because you thought that it was just about this skill thing. This I'm going to learn techniques, and that makes me special. No, it doesn't. It doesn't make you special at all. That doesn't. Like I said this morning, the art doesn't live in the charcoal, right? And as soon as you realise that, everything changes. Art doesn't live in the brush. Art doesn't live in the pencil. And that's because that's, you know, the skills mentality that promotes that kind of thing. That it's all about your technique and all about your ability with the brush or the pencil or whatever. All those things that we're taught that are important, they're not. So this is even more. This is why you should establish your why. Why you do what you do. I mean, I suppose you could. It could be a complicated why. I like things simple, so I'm always going to say it's just because I like doing it. And if you ask me what I like and why I like something, I can't tell you, but I can tell you I like something. You know, and that's it. I think that's for me is as complicated as I want it. But some people want it more complicated. People do want, you know, to explain why they like what they do, and you know, and so on and so forth. But for me, it's just extra complication, because doing this can be complicated. It can be difficult, but and made difficult because of complication. So I take away all as much as I can, really, as much as I can, to make it as simple and as straightforward as I can. I'm not looking for it to be complicated. I wouldn't. So there's my why, right? I love doing it, and I want to keep it simple. And my thing is to connect to other humans, because that's a simple thing. I could already do that. I could do that before I picked up a piece of charcoal. So I will focus on that. And since the most important thing about portraits is to capture the soul of the person, regardless of the execution, then it fits nicely with my simplest approach, or my simple approach. So that really is the, you know, for me, which really sums up what I do, which is why a lot of the stuff I do varies, because none of it's about the technical ability. None of it's about that. It's about, I mean, the only technical skills, and I've said to you before about simple 3 dots and things, the reason why I did that was because I wanted that to be dead simple, so I can get it out of the way. I don't want to make it any more complicated or finding out where things are and so on. I don't want it any more complicated than that. So I think that if I was advising anybody on embarking on this, the first thing I'd say is, why do you want to do it? Why do you want to do this? I mean, a lot of people are going to turn around and say they want to copy faces. I mean, they might not say they want to copy faces, but that's fundamentally what they're talking about. But that's fine. I think that once you've established your why, you can go about fixing how. So if copying faces is your thing, and that's your why, then you're going to work out how you're going to do that, technically and so on and so forth. I mean, I just saw somebody this morning who was trying to copy a picture of a little girl playing, and I just said to them, why didn't you trace it? There was no, because that's what they were trying to do, and make an exact copy of this photograph. And there was no reason not to trace it, and it was as if I'd insulted them. But for me, it's just, if she'd got a why sorted out, then she would have traced it, because that's all she wants to do. She just wants to copy this photograph, and that's fine. Just trace it and colour it in. Get really good at colouring in. But as I say, until you've got your why. For me, the why thing of responding to a face and capturing an essence, it all the way through the project, all the way through the face, the drawing, those questions are asked is it doing what I want it to do? Is it doing when I underline, when I look at the image and so on and so forth, is it doing what I see? And even if it's not drawn properly, even if it's not proper outlines and so on and so forth, if it's doing what it's meant to do, then it's enough. But that's, again, it's part of my reasoning is behind all that. My desire to respond and capture my response. That's what's behind all that. So in a way, my simple reasoning of I just want to do it affects the way I draw, which is not what it should be actually. Because if we're talking about responsive drawing, that's it, isn't it? Responsive drawing is responding to what you see. Anyway, as I said, I've not really thought about this an awful lot, other than the other video I did about why. I'm not sure how far I got with that either, but I just think it's really important that people do this from the right point of view, from the right place. If you don't sort that out, then you're always going to be chasing something. More often than not, it's just chasing technique or skill or whatever else you want to burden yourself with. But it shouldn't be complicated. It should be a simple thing. It should be a simple. I mean, as I said, it can be like mine, which is I just like doing it. You know what I mean? And then you can see that I like doing it. You can see the joy that's in it. You can see all that. If it captures the essence of somebody, then it's an even more joyful thing for me. Forget about whether or not I've got the actual curls on his, or the folds on his neckerchief exactly right. It's not really about that for me. It's about, I'm telling you that there's a neckerchief around his neck, and it's something like this. You know what a neckerchief looks like. You can fill in the blanks. It's that kind of thinking. So I'm not burdening myself with the need to replicate in order to illuminate. I also the use of the medium where I use it, that is part of the simplicity as well. So I choose to use the minimum amount of tools. I don't. If I've got a rubber and a blunt piece of charcoal around, that's about as much as I want to complicate it. So, but there's two things with that. I draw differently with a smaller piece of charcoal, and it also makes me think about the limitations of the small bit of charcoal. So I can't do any more than just what I'm doing, and it's enough, sort of thing. Plus the fact, the other thing about what I do is the flow thing. So I'm connected to a subject, and I want to maintain that subject. I was looking. I've got Sargent and Spain for Christmas, a book that my son's bought me, and I was thinking about sustained connections. The thing that moved Sargent to paint the Spanish girl, the famous with her arm out, this one on the front, that one, and the other one where she's actually dancing. The thing and the guitarists are behind her. So there are loads of sketches, you see. So the thing that moved him to want to capture that, he sustained that thing, which is what Robert Enright was talking about. That being able to memorize the thing that moved you in the first place, not what colour their eyes are. You see, there's the initial sketches. So he was able to sustain his connection to what moved him. He wasn't, how well can I replicate he was moved by that image, and that's all he strove to capture. The emotion of that image, that particular. Although it's a bit distorted, their arms a bit weird, but that's what he was moved to capture. So I envy that. I envy that ability to sustain the connection to the subject, because in order to ultimately create, I don't know which one it is, where the famous one is, but there's loads of them, you see. But all the time, it's about capturing the mood of the thing, not about capturing the exact position of the limbs and how many digits she's got in her hand, or how many digits are visible. So that for me is the thing. It's all about the connection to the subject, and that maintaining that connection over a period of time. That's enviable. It's probably what made Sargent great. I mean, obviously the drawing side of it, his abilities, his skills, which would naturally have occurred because of the time he'd done it. How many years he was drawing when he was a kid, and so on and so forth. So they would have naturally occurred anyway. And as an adult, not having to pay the rent and everything else, we all would thrive underneath that, under that kind of opportunity. But this magical thing is this sustaining the connection to the subject. That's the thing. So what moves you in the first place, because this is what I'm thinking about when I'm choosing subjects. If something moves me because it's got an emotive content, and I tend to choose things that have context. This guy's got a look about him, and it's a period thing, which is always like it's always a bit of an attraction. So when I connect with something, that's what I want to capture. That's what I don't care about the details of his eye. I don't care actually how the light hits it or why the light hits it. I don't care about those things. What I care is that I can connect with it and let that connection drive the response. And however I respond, sometimes, as I said, using mediums or using the medium in a particular way, like with a shorter piece of charcoal, for instance, that can affect the way I respond. If it's a finer piece with a finer point on it, I might, if I'm not careful, get into drawing too much detail in it. So consequently, it will have a different feel about it. But all these things are all to do with my response, and nothing to do with a considered, I'm going to use this bit of charcoal here and this bit of charcoal there, and that's what I'm going to do, and I'm going to smudge this bit, and I'm going to brush this bit, and and all that. Don't do any of that. Not interested. not interested in that. It happens at the very moment. So it's the simplicity of that I'm that I want. But as I said, all of it's driven by a connection to the subject. Anyway, just to, as I said, I've not really thought it through properly, and I'm going to try and think it through and do a proper full-on video about the why thing, because I think that anybody who's doing this, if you haven't any creating art, full stop, if you haven't established your why, a lot of the people that are really successful at it do it unintentionally. Some of them do it on purpose, you know, and it becomes a little bit obvious, you know, and the more fine-arty types might have a cause or something, and somebody might decide to do a series or something, but and that's the motives, you know, or it might have a, God forbid, it might be used as a political statement. That's not, for me, that's not art, I'm afraid. It's using creative skills, if you like, but I don't know, art is beyond or above mere politics, or should be anyway. But I think that most people, if they are true to themselves and their motives for doing this, will be a better artist for establishing what it is. It's not something that you're inclined to do, and a lot of people get into it tend to get bogged down by the doing, you know, and so the point where the doing becomes all it's about. That's a terrible thing. When you get into that position, you sure pretty much that you're doomed. As a creative, you're doomed. It should never be about how. How is a consequence of why. That's a good one, isn't it? See, I'm not really thought this through yet, but I'm going to probably come up with quite a few of those choice sayings in order to qualify what it is I'm banging on about. But yeah, I'm going to leave it at that, because it's pretty much, it worked pretty well, and I'm just going to tickle things up here and there. One of the things about, and I said this last night's repeat thing, you know, repetition thing, because that's another thing that people somehow think that repetition, drawing the same subject over and over again, is a beneficial thing. It's not. It's just showing you can just drive yourself into the wrong place doing that. You do want to draw anything and everything, but doing the same thing over and over again, what's that do? Particularly if you're talking about response, talking about connection and response, doing the same thing over and over again is going to be detrimental. That's it. End of. So I wouldn't advise. I think that the reason why I accelerated so quickly with my portraits was because I never drew the same thing twice. I never got bogged down by practicing particular things or considering particular things. It just was doing it, you know, just creating things, just creating work, and that ultimately, providing your eyes sorted, ultimately you learn anyway. Or you learn what you need to learn, and you don't learn what you don't need to learn. So it's kind of self-fulfilling in a way. Anyway, as I say, I'm done now. Apart from the tweaking, I just want to get the look a little bit more, and I'm going to try and get the whites out of that if I can, but I don't think I'll be able to. Right. I don't know whether or not I'm going to put background on it or some kind of background on it. I just, as I said, I thought the image, because of its context, made it better. And that's what drove me towards doing it. I want to do it. But I don't know whether or not. There are times when, and this is purely subjective, I suppose. There are times when I don't think it needs to be, have a actual background, and there are times when I think it does. So it's just in the moment. It's whatever response I feel is necessary. That's it. It's nothing more. Again, nothing more complicated than that. Right. As I said, I'm going to leave it at that, and then I'll be tweaking it just to get things a little bit more to feel better. But it's not far off, though. It's not far off at all. I think some of the alignments are a bit weird, but they're a bit weird anyway. So I don't mind them being slightly off. So the ear is a little bit further back that way, like that. I'm just going to push I'm just thinking about distances there. I'm going to push this bit of hair up a bit further back, there, like that. Okay. Yep. Yeah, I'm done. As I said, I'm going to do a full-on video, I think, about the why. Although, as I said, I kind of covered the main things, but I can't think of it being any more complicated. And it's one of those things, you'll either get it or you don't. You'll either understand what I'm saying or you won't. It'll be because it's not. It's the comprehension thing. Your understanding of what doing this is about is completely different to mine. So I'll never be able to convince you that knowing your why is as important as knowing how. Or the other kind of why. Why light does what it does, why colours do what they do. All that. So I'll never be able to convince you other than that. But the thing for me, and the reason why I do these videos is, and the classes and stuff, is because I know how the difference these things make to people who want to do this. And if you're struggling to do this, then it's because of these things that I'm talking about. So I know that firsthand these things make a difference. So consequently, I want to share them. It's not any more complicated than that. I want to share what I've experienced and what has impacted on me over the last 5 years. So that's my why for doing these, for doing the videos. Right, as I'm done now, so yeah. Okay. I'll love you, leave it. Hopefully I made a bit of sense. And I tend to think what happens with these is that there are some things resonate and other things don't. I think it's because I don't rehearse it or don't really have any plan as to what I'm going to talk about other than my own personal experience, and consequently I ramble on, and a lot of people don't like that. So unfortunately they don't get the message because it's my silly ramblings. But I think it's better it's out there than it's not. It's one of those things. When I found that thing about hard and easy, I have a book, a folder full of the things that struck me. And sometimes they're quite deep and quite relevant, and more times than not, the definition of art that I put together, because somebody said art is this. I thought, no, it's not. So I wrote something, and when I look at it now, it's like, who wrote this? It's like a thesis on what art is. So I tend to keep all these things, like the why thing, in a folder, and then all of a sudden somebody starts banging on about it, about silly things as well. This same guy was talking about working from images that are out of focus. I've been saying that all along about working with images that are out of focus. And it's true. It's what you should do, to try to see beyond the detail. We have this fantastic facility now. Back in the day when Sargent was doing it, it was just low light or bad eyesight in the case of Monet, but that enabled them to see only what was important. These days we can just eliminate the unnecessary by making the image out of focus. What a fantastic thing to take advantage of. But again, that is probably something that many would think was not the ideal thing. Where can I get high-res images from? People will ask me. I have no idea, because I'd never looked for high-res images. What is the point of that? Well, obviously, because they want to copy the detail and so on and so forth. Because people will say to me, I love all the detail. It's what I like the most about it. And fair enough. I mean, that's just, if that's your bag, that's your bag. I'm not saying anything's wrong about that. I'm saying that a portrait isn't about the detail. The likeness, the life force isn't about the detail. It can be about everything but the detail. And if detail and your ability to capture detail is the measure of your worth, your work, then so be it. Fair enough. That's your why nailed right there. Charcoal's great stuff, isn't it? It's like it's like so unintentional at times. It's like, it makes a mark. I mean, I've said this before, but it's probably to do with my homemade stuff. But it's so like responsive, I think is the word. It's providing it's obviously the right kind of stuff and your paper is the right kind of paper, but or paper that allows you to be responsive. I'm not saying there is a right and wrong paper, because I use everything and respond accordingly, but taking advantage of the way that charcoal works and the way it responds and the way it unintentionally makes marks or tones, or when you smudge things and you can do all that. Taking advantage of those things is really the only way you're going to get the best out of charcoal. Try and make it do what you want it to do. Try and draw with it like you would with graphite, and you're not going to get the best out of your charcoal. It's not really something that you want to control. You want to just, as I said before, it's a bit of a rodeo thing. You're going to get on the horse and stop on as long as you can. Right, I think I'm done before I start messing things up. Okay, yep. Let me just work out this distance here. Yeah, we're okay. I was getting a bit too to narrow and yeah. Let me just